Hello again. I've lived in various countries, and when I've done so, I've understood perfectly well that I have to keep my passport near at hand and show it to the police if necessary, or if I want to rent a room, say, open a bank account, get a job. Having my passport is a vital part of the process. I've never had any objection to that. I draw the line, however, having to show my passport in my own country. When I mentioned here a few days ago that people born in this country often have to produce their passport to do ordinary things, some people commented and said it was all nonsense. It sounded so bizarre, I'm the first to concede. Nevertheless, it's perfectly true. An English person born in England of a family which might have lived in the country for hundreds of years cannot rent a room without producing a passport and prove that he or she is entitled to live in their own country. I mean, this is just such a weird state of affairs, it needs little explanation. As with so many of the more bizarre aspects of modern life, it's a direct consequence of immigration. Let's have a look at the government website. Check your tenant right to rent. You can find it if you just Google that with government.com. It says to landlords, you must check that a tenant or lodger can legally rent your residential property in England. That's plain enough. It also warns sternly, check all new tenants. It's against the law to only check people you think are not British citizens. You must not discriminate against anyone because of where they're from. In short, even if somebody's called Jim Jones and obviously born in England, definitely English, you must still treat him as though he were a suspicious foreigner who may not have a right to live in his own country. What documents must you see? Here's the publications checklist. Let's have a look. Right to Rent document checks, a user guide, December 2016. It's published by Her Majesty's Stationery Office. Let's have a look. Here's the acceptable list of single documents which a landlord may legally accept for identification purposes. A UK passport, a European Union or Swiss passport, European Union identity card, registration certificate, documents certifying permanent residence in the European Union, biometric residence, a permit with unlimited leave to remain, document endorsed with unlimited leave to remain, certificate of naturalisation or registration as a British citizen. In short, if you were born in this country and don't have a passport and you're not a driver, you're going to find it very difficult, if not impossible, to rent a flat. Which sounds really weird. You have to prove to whoever you're renting the flat that you have the right to live in the country. What about opening a bank account? Well, it's the same process. You must prove both your identity and your address. Lloyds banks say that to prove your identity you need to have one of the following to open an account: a current EU passport or a photo driving licence or identity card, British passport, disabled driver's pass, benefits entitlement letter, UK Armed Forces ID card, Home Office immigration status document, Home Office application registration card. So if you're a working person who doesn't drive, you're not claiming benefits and were born in this country, you'll need a passport to open a bank account. The same applies to getting a job or even signing on with an employment agency. You can't do it. Not unless you've got photo ID, which means if you haven't got a driving licence, you have to have a passport. Am I really the only one who finds this utterly bizarre and horribly offensive? I was born in this country and my family have lived here for centuries, certainly since the 18th century to my certain knowledge. but I might be called upon to prove that I have the right to live in my own country. I mean, do people imagine it was always this way? It was not. At one time, renting a room was a completely private matter between a prospective tenant and the landlord. The idea that you would be called upon to show your passport to rent a flat in London would have been thought quite grotesque a few years ago. That you would be unable to obtain employment without a passport in your own country would also have seemed really peculiar. Step by step, we've moved to a situation where young English people are being asked to prove their right to be in their own country. Sometimes they're asked for their passport by foreigners to prove that they're entitled to live here, which is really weird. I honestly wonder how much more people of this country are going to put up with this before they start to rebel.